Alright, more to do. Always more to do. Looks like the Twitch chat remained active after me. Let me catch up real quick. Before we get to programming, navigation idea, yep, and then Flying Solomon comeback. Fix the search function, yes I did. Capitalization is wrong. Next build will be so hyped. I remembered something that could be added to the list. Default to the existing search panel. Yes. So I'm using the built-in to-do feature that's been there for forever, and I just never actually gave it a shot and saw if it was any good, and now I'm using it because I like it. Okay. For those of you who don't know, all you have to do is make a to-do.txt, and it'll automatically get indented like C code, so you can use braces to organize your to-do lists into groups like this. So we want to file under bug. Use existing visible search buffer if, when possible, for let's see, I'm going to put that here before we get on to the Control-Shift-O stuff. I want to do that because we were already doing search stuff before the break. Alright, so I think, let me check my emails. I might have something here. Yep, alright, we're all good. So, let's get this going. So we're going to do this search thing first. Okay, so, you guys already have this code sitting around. Why don't I look at your example code for how to do this? Change active panel to or create named buffer. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to copy your code here and review it real quick to see how it works and stylize it to match me and whatnot. So this name I don't like. Sorry, I know it just makes work for you, but I'm going to switch it to a slightly more terse name. Create or switch to named buffer. A buffer by name. If the buffer exists, We did not find what we were looking for. Buffer replace range. So you're zeroing out the whole buffer. I see. Okay, I like that. That seems very, very reasonable and useful. Now, where do I need to integrate that over here is the next question. Okay, here we go. So if it doesn't exist, we're doing that stuff. If it does exist, we're doing that stuff. And the question is, how much of this stuff does that do? So it only does the step buffer if it wasn't already open. We still have to, okay. Create or switch to buffer by name. Only trouble with all of this is that it doesn't parameterize the starting view. Which is something I think I might want it to do. Let's see here. Okay, we can close that. Alright. I think I might want recover the auto jump to only match feature in BAP. Okay. So yeah, the part I don't get about this is if I do something like this, it opens in that view, not in that one. So when did that happen? When did the change active panel or whatever happen? There it is, it's right there. Change active panel. I think I don't want that. I think what I want is well, it's a little annoying to have to do. But yeah, I think what I want is I want to pass in a default target view all the way from the top. Uh-oh, crashy time. Can't ship next week. Basically, my rule is once I start getting close, what I end up doing is I run run last week's build all the time, and if I have any crashes that week, I don't ship. So I can't ship next week because it won't be until the end of next week that I have finished testing this week's build, and then I will, you know, have made more changes. So then I have to get like basically I have to get 1 full week without any crashes, plus end that week without making any major changes, and so there's just no way that I could even think about pushing this out yet. It needs more time. Okay, let's figure out where I left off. I was at... Where was I? I was in search, right? Default. Oh no, did I lose? How much of it did I lose? Create by name. Oh no, don't tell me I lost that much. There we go, okay. Yeah, okay. Alright, resuming hyperactive save mode. You see this right here? Alright, now what we want to do is actually get these out of the way. Oops, didn't get that quite right. I don't feel like that should go there either. I'm trying to separate out the changing of global states to the changing of buffer states more often. So that means that all that is good, but now these shouldn't be able to build anymore. Get next active panel. Yeah, that doesn't exist. I think you made that up. I need this. Customizations. View. Get view next. Alright. somebody somewhere is calling this. Get first view with buffer. Get next view looped all panels. There it is. Thought that call was weird because I was like, why is it getting passed as a pointer and returned? I would never have done that. Okay. List query parameters now wants that view there. So what we have to do is go target view equals get target view next. Target view. And this is where things get weird. I can't just set the active to the target view because it might not be the one we're switching to. So actually it is the case that we want to create or switch to, yeah, so if we do this, we set that as the active view. I'm going to say if we do this, we're going to set that as the target active view. If we do this, we're going to set that as the active view there too. Okay, so creator switch to buffer by name will change my active view. Always to the correct one. And then I don't have to think about that part of it. So now it's just a matter of being able to call this thing. And what this means is I can very easily say something like get target view next or get active view, right? have some way of doing the get next view looped all panels, the version that doesn't go through primary panels. There's the one I want. Weird, I do pass those as pointers, that's dumb. Changing that would break other people's shit unnecessarily, so I'm not gonna do it. But, ugh, stupid. Alright, so looking at search now, get next view after active. That gives me a nice easy way to pick the target view. And if anyone wants to make a version of these commands that opens up in the current view or in the footer view, that should just work now. They can just write that by just making a copy of one of these and changing the target view. Or if you're a gym and you have 3 views and you need some way to specify which view you want to open in by using an arrow key or something crazy, that'll even work. Alright. Okay. Let's make sure that things still basically behave the same way with the exception of okay, that works. Suppose I want a list of all the for loops. And I go, okay, give me all the for loops, and then I'm stepping through and I go, oh, you know what? This has formats. I used the wrong one. I used Alt F. I want Control Shift F for loops. Hey, cool. And if I do it from this side and this side, yeah, alright, that's pretty cool. I like it. I dig it. Cool. Alright. Thanks to my patrons, my great supporters, Jim, and I don't know which handle to use for you, but I'll go with flying for that improvement. Okay. Sorry, that's not the right one. List all locations. I guess I didn't add it. Oh, we lost this when it crashed. Okay. reuse open existing search view when possible. Okay. Alright, so let's get on to reload big file. First I need a big file to try this on. I think I have the appropriate candidate. The file which is big enough that it has an unusual behavior in 4coder anyway, and that unusual behavior is somewhat related to the other crash bug that I got, which said that if you disable virtual whitespace and reload you get a crash. If I have a file that's big enough that virtual whitespace does not get enabled by default, maybe that also causes a crash. So let's take a look at API implementation. This is a file that's just big enough. Oh, well, I've changed the threshold now. But let's take a look at hooks real quick. And I want to go to 192. Yes. Let's return to the days when that number was 128. Which is where I still believe it should be. I just am cheating because I have a file that's big. That's that big now. Namely the API implementation file. Okay. Now suppose I zoom around and then reload. Okay, no crash there. What if it has a change? Does that matter? Fizzbaz Mraz. Nope, that didn't cause a problem. Alright, let's suppose I enable this and then reload. Okay. Suppose I disable this and reload. Okay, I'm not getting a crash, people. I can't debug these issues if I can't recreate them. Reload big file. Crash after disabling virtual whitespace and reloading. I don't know what this is. They seem related. They seem like the same thing. If the big file is big enough that virtual whitespace is disabled, then we would have a reason why this causes the crash. And so then it would just be a matter of why does virtual whitespace being disabled cause a reload to crash. But I can't reproduce. So these go into the category repro needed. I guess that category should live right here. I'll have to ask for those repros after the stream today to get more info from them. Because neither of them sent me the offending file. Oh! Alright, Flying Solomon has a repro. Get that to me and then I will resume it might be that it's fixed because of the changes we made to the settings hook too. But yeah, Flying Solomon, if you have a repro, I don't think this is Linux tied. I mean, maybe you are getting it reproed on Linux. But if I zoom back here to one of the people who reported it, maybe I need to go even bigger to trigger it though. Maybe it needs to have both of these properties, or maybe these are somewhat but not totally related, I don't know. Maybe the reason the person disabled virtual whitespace was because it was too big. Yeah, I'm going to need to wait until I have a repro for this before I go any farther with it though, because we can go ahead and plug on with these things and return to this next week. If indent bug, right, I have the repro case for that. So let me pull it up over here on the hidden screen. Here it is. I'm going to move it over to here. Okay. And now, just to be extra sure, because I don't know if this file is sensitive or not, they didn't tell me, I'm going to actually navigate to it off screen as well. Just in case. Okay, now the problem is supposed to be an indentation bug. This file's pretty big, but reloading it hasn't caused a problem either, by the way. Should be able to do something like okay, what if I disable this and I do this? No. Okay, let me re-watch their repro video real quick. Oops, because just messing with the file, I haven't got it. Was crashing on buffer set setting virtual white space true? Huh. That probably explains it. BB Buy-in, what are you, who are you asking? I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone here has customizations, but I'm curious who you're trying to talk to. I mean, in a sense, I don't have customizations. I have a very few, but they're also available. You can just build the 4coder underscore experiments. Most of my customizations end up right in the actual build. The only things that are mine that aren't in the default build are, like, I have a kill rectangle that's kind of buggy, so I don't actually ship it because I don't want people using it and getting frustrated with it, because you have to, like, memorize all of its really weird quirks, and, like, it only works in special conditions that you have to make sure you create. I don't know, I think my enum filling stuff is all published now. I think for the most part, I can show you the code that I run that isn't actually a part of the default build. So we have kill rect, multi-line edit, multi-paste, which this is pretty much ready to introduce into the main build. Rename parameters ready for the main build, although look at that code, that's more code than I realized. I question it. Explicit enum values is ready for the main build, so a lot of this I'm actually prepared to upgrade anyway. Replace all occurrences isn't ready yet. This has still got some bugs that I need to work on. So really, this is the only part that I need to keep to myself anymore. There's a few other functions in here. 1, 2, 3, 4 main commands. 2 of which I actually use a lot. Multi-paste I use occasionally, but multi-line edit I use a couple times a day. Kill rect I use a couple times a day. So like these are real things that I could upgrade at this point. Multi-paste I use every couple of days, but it works, it's just not that useful. So yeah. Um, Flying Solomon, I'm going to tell everyone, based on what you told me about where it was hitting a seg fault, I'm going to tell everyone who reported it to give it a try in the new build because I couldn't repro it, and if they can't repro it in the new build, it's fixed. If they can, send me their repro cases. That's the best I think I can do at this point, because it looks like maybe I've already fixed it while doing other things, so it's not easy to recreate anymore. Alright, I was tracking down that indent bug. Alright, where is this? Here we go. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. That's the wrong one. There's two indent bugs, and that's the one from the... That's one that we just fixed a little bit ago with the settings shit. Oh, I have another bug. Well, it's actually like a subpart of the lister sorting. Exact matches sort to top. Always. Always, always. Always. That should be enough alwayses, I think, so that I actually do it correctly. Where are you? Can't find it now. Must be on the second page or something? I thought it was near the top. I'm so far back in time now, this can't be right. Okay, hold on. This was like... There's one of the indent bugs right there. I'm going to assume it's above from here and I've missed it somehow. Oh, here it is. It's got sorted to the very top. That's why I didn't see it. They responded to me. Sorry for the wait, people. Yeah, Flying Solomon, you got the right idea. If you type in filename.cpp, that should always bring filename.cpp up to the top. If you type in filename, I'm not planning to make that sort filename.cpp to the top. I mean, I could think about it, but I wasn't thinking about being that loose, like being that smart with it. I was just thinking if you type in an exact match, filename.cpp, it should be sorting 4coder filename.cpp before filename.cpp. Alright. Let me watch this repro video again. Okay, I see. So I need to disable virtual white space. Find... what line is that? Okay, find that line right there. And then I need to... I don't know, that worked. Alright, let me watch the rest of the video. Okay, I get it. Yep. Alright, I figured it out. Alright, so, this one is done. I need to do, I need a follow-up list now. File size, virtual white space, situation. Alright, that was not a real bug, that was a... their 4coder behaves weirdly when your file is really big bug. But I mean for it to do that. Okay. You guys have more info on the repro for this. Can you send me more repro info on these reload crashes? What do you got for me? Is it just as simple as reloading? Or was there a trick to it? Okay. Alright, I haven't actually tried that yet, so let me um, do that real quick. Implementation. Yeah, alright. Yeah, it works, so we're gonna move this over to follow up. This category can be empty now. So this reminds me I actually need to do end file signal dumps and recreates the dumps the current managed scope. Oh, I'm drinking Reed's ginger brew. A nice refreshing type ginger ale. Okay, so let's do these two bugs down here so that we have the bugs list cleared out. List all locations and UI mode. Do you know what I'd really like to do actually? Yeah, so we're going to move bugs like that, and we're going to have a change log group down here. And so yeah, I'll start using the changelog more carefully in the next build, but that'll be pretty cool. Alright, let's do list all locations and UI mode. So this is a part of search actually. Okay. So I want to do so basically the problem, let me see if I can recreate this first. So I have one of these right here. Let me pop over to layer actually and pull up this. And then I do a find all the for loops. It doesn't change that until I do this. Okay. So I really want to pull up search. Right here. And we want list parameters. gonna need to happen right here. Find all my for loops. Need to delete that space still. So the buffer did not exist. View set buffer doesn't take access flags. It takes the set buffer flags. Yeah. Okay, so that's not that big of a deal. We need to go to the helpers by name. Okay, it's under the framework by name. There it is. View set buffer flags, keep original GUI. So I just need to set that to false. I need to set this to false. No flags, zeroed out. But what do we do in this case? In this case, we don't actually default target. In this case, if we did find what we were looking for, then instead of setting the buffer, we have the buffer set, what we need to do is clear out the UI on it still. View, this isn't documented yet, it's a new feature. View set UI, view end UI mode. That's where things can get weird, because if I end UI mode, what does that, I don't know, what does that do to the file? I just don't know. Yeah, this part doesn't know either. It doesn't actually have a story about what it's going to do yet. We need some kind of quit UI events to make this work. So that's got to get bumped up the list. Okay, so this code over here is written correctly, it's just not going to work because we don't have the answer for this more important question, which is how does a UI mode get ended by someone outside of the code that wrote that UI? We have to sit and think that through. The Burke is real asked, does 4coder use pixel or point for font size? I honestly can't remember. Let's take a quick look, shall we? Point size. I know that just because it says point size doesn't mean it's actually using point size, but the way it works is in free type, when you set your size, um, yeah, when you set your site, you can see it right here. It's a fixed point value with 6 bits of fractional, and so that's why it's being shifted over to the left by 6. And positive means point and negative means pixel. We already can check which views are and aren't in UI mode. The problem is I don't have a very clean story about how all that's going to work, so we need to go into design mode next. So let me take a quick peek at how much time we've put in here. An hour? Okay, this is good. So we have the first hour is clearing out the bug list, and then we're going to switch gears to needs quit UI events. That Lexer thing, I'm going to demote that to longer term bug, because that's actually like getting into changing stuff that's somewhat more fundamental than I want to poke at right now. Cool, thanks. Thanks, Jim, for all that input. That'll be helpful when I settle down to figure that out. Yeah, so with that, that means the only thing we have left to do is to work on quit UI events. This right here, I'm thinking is appropriate to go in long term, because touching the Lexer is just, it's work that causes ripple effects to other bugs. And even if I can do it without creating a bug, every change I make in the Lexer is a little bit of like wasted effort, because someday the Lexer is going to be somewhat removed from 4coder, so I'm reluctant to jump into that at the cost of my, train of thought on this quit UI events thing. So the other question is, what happens when you end a buffer? I guess any buffer that's in a view doesn't actually need to talk to the UI system at all. A UI lives inside of a view. A buffer is the thing that gets ended. Just because the view a buffer a view is looking at gets ended doesn't have any effect on its UI directly if it has UI mode up. So let's switch to quit UI event so that we can clear out this last to-do item on the bugs thing. Okay. This is the part of the stream where we go Milton. Alright. And I'm going to help out OBS and my computer by saving and closing 4coder and shutting off the debugger. Okay. I'm using a very old version of Milton, by the way, so keep that in mind as I go today. Alright, so here's the problem, basically. First of all, remember that there's the organization of 4coder into 3 main layers. We have the modular drop-in OS layer, and that is sort of uniquely related to the render layer as well. The render module kind of lives with the OS module in the OS layer. Then we have the core, which sits there and be's awesome. That's its job. So abstract the operating system and rendering, sit there and be's awesome, and then we have the custom layer. Now custom has an internal structure that's fairly complicated of its own, which is that custom is made up of insertable and removable modules. And what we want to do is we want to reduce the frequency with which one module has to know and interact with code in this module and vice versa. Basically, if this situation ever exists where both modules have to know an identifier from the other module, then that's actually just one module. This is not two modules, this is one big module. Because you can't have one without the other, they live and die together. If you have a situation like this, this is two separate modules and this one just depends on this one. As much as possible, we want it to look like this. Now, how does that work when, for instance, events that originate here affect what this module is doing? Well, it works because they all speak with the core. And it's supposed to be the core's job to allow them to work together without them actually ever having to meet. They're like a bunch of anonymous agents, and the core makes them work together. That's why the core has to sit there and be awesome all day. So, how do we make this work with respect to the fact that one of these things here might write some code that's like, hey, I'm doing some UI work. Here's my UI work, and my UI is currently active. I'm doing a UI thing. And then this module over here issues a, hey, switch to this view. Or switch to buffer type event, and that event needs to go into this UI somehow, shut it down cleanly so that it is gone, and then continue with whatever it was doing before. You can see this is an arrow here, and if every single module besides this one has the potential to put a UI on the screen, so here's a potential UI that wasn't on the screen when this event actually happened in our mythology here today, and here's another UI, then the problem is, even though this event flowed this way, it also had to be prepared to flow here, and it had to be prepared to flow here, and so on and so on. So that's a part of the story. There's also the possibility that one module has more than one UI it could support. So it could be that this module up here is the lister module, and it has 4 different UIs it might put into a view. 4 potentially possible UIs that could go into any possible view, right? And then maybe this right here is another UI thing that does something else. Who knows what? It's your HUD or something. And then this one right here issues this is your jump list stuff, and it issues the switch to buffer event. So these are all potentials, not actuals, right? So these are 4 potential UIs, this is a potential UI, and this is a potential event. The question is, what is the mechanism by which this potential event and these potential UIs all agree to work together cleanly without drawing arrows all over the place, from this guy to all those UIs there, all those potential UI type things that can show up? So obviously part of the answer is it needs to come in this way and then through here this way. And we want to write it in such a way that these don't have to do a whole lot of work thinking about who's issuing this either, right? If there's someone else over here who can also issue an end UI thing for some reason, I want you to end UI for, X reason. We don't want each of these things to have to think about who is ending my UI to do the right thing, right? So if I clean this up a little bit with some red arrows here, it's like either one of these can go out like this with a event that ends a UI. These need to be able to get stuff back in that tells them their UI is ending. And we want a way to do this where neither the enders down here at the bottom nor the UIs being ended up here at the top have to know about the other thing, the list of other things that might be causing those events, right? Or receiving them. And these are all potentials still. So how do we encode the potential that we want to do these things, is what I'm getting at, by writing some code. So, what's the nice good way to do this? A couple possibilities. The most obvious of which is the UI system could set up a callback. You could say, here's my UI and here's my cleanup callback. Call that if you ever want me to clean up. Then when this thing here actually gets sent out and closes this thing here, this thing has registered its callback, so the blue arrow. This thing makes a call into the core that says switch to buffer and puts a 0 there saying I want you to override the UI. So the switch to buffer causes this to go, oh, we need to end the UI. So that's going to send a signal to here through its callback to close this thing out. And if that thing didn't have anything to clean up, it doesn't necessarily need a callback at all. But if it does need to clean something up, maybe it's, spamming the views or manage scope with some variables and objects that it wants to make sure aren't sitting around after it's gone. Now, a part of the thing we could be doing is if it's just memory cleanup we're worried about, we could introduce another managed scope. But I'm not sure that that covers all cases. I'm not convinced it does. On the other hand, if I add callbacks to managed scopes, then it would, which is something I've considered doing anyway. Like, you can say, here's the thing that does auto cleanup for this object. The reason I haven't done that is that so far the managed scopes can free automatically. Like, they can free, if you have 1 megabyte of memory in a managed scope and then you suballocate stuff out of it, when that managed scope is gone, it doesn't have to go through each individual little blob and free it. It can free the whole container that contained all that stuff in one go. It's one operation, the whole thing is gone like that. So that if you close a view and that was connected to 6 different there were 6 different scopes that existed that were dependent on that view, it doesn't mean 6 times the amount of things in each view, the average number of things in each view. It's just 6. Full stop. So like O of n in the number of things dependent on it. If I add callbacks, then whenever you close a scope, you have to iterate those callbacks and call them, which adds an O of m, where m is the number of callbacks, assuming that each callback can execute in O1 time, which is also not necessarily true. And I don't know, for now, for the simplicity's sake, I think I like to have the nice assumption that you don't have that sort of complexification that can happen. Flying Solomon agrees with my first idea, which is to have the UI register a callback. It's nice because when you go into UI mode, what happens is you say, hey, here's my UI, and you just pass it a big blob of data that describes the UI. Having a callback attached to that is very simple, and then we aren't adding the complexity of callbacks to the managed scopes. You could still add, if we want all the memory to go with it, then the user can make a user-created managed scope. Instead of having one tied to the UI, we can have a user-created one, and the user just chooses to create one at the UI startup and closes it in the callback to close itself. The only reason I'm reluctant is because I'm not convinced that the UIs will always be so callbacky. Eventually, I think each UI is going to run into its own coroutine, at which point it would be basically the same as getting back an abort input, but it's not really the situation we're in right now. The UIs are very callback-ish right now, which means without going down all the way through the coroutine land, I think to get this build out in a reasonable time, we're going to stay in callback land, and we will wait for the event API upgrade that will come in the next build probably to fix up some more of this UI stuff and replace the callback with a coroutine input method. But that means anyone who uses the callbacks has a bunch of work to do unless there's some kind of helper I can come up with for that. I mean, basically what it comes down to is, one way or another, it's got to be a callback right now because that's the only way that anything receives events, and there's no way around it. So, whether I like it or not, it's either use a callback for this cleanup or completely do the event upgrades first. So I think callback it is. Then we're going to register a cleanup callback when we register a UI. And then when we end a UI, we call that cleanup callback. Okay. Okay. So, where do I want to start with this? I think I want to start from the end of right here. So there's these two different paths that could potentially come in like this and flow like this. And there's all of these possibilities too. These dotted lines represent potential paths that also need to be in there. So both of these operations, I want to get them synced up so that they agree on a method of ending a UI and looking up its callback and then calling to it, right? And then slowly push down from there until we have out the other end the place where we actually implement those callbacks. Okay. No, callback land is an easy way to kick things off. It's just, you know, if it can be avoided with something elegant, it's nice to do so, but I didn't see it this time. So here we go. When we are in API implementation, to do send quit UI event. Yes. So, where are all the occurrences of that comment right there? Okay, what's going on here? Send quit. Why am I not getting any matches? I obviously have matches. Okay, to do Alan. Okay. Send. Oh, that's why. Send quit UI. What? Well, how's that a crash? Get out of here. Get on out of here. Send quit UI. See, that's the annoying thing about this particular crash, is it's super unreliable. Well, the nice thing about spamming it is that if I ever search to do, this will show up 5 times. And so it'll make this big block right here that's like to do, like if I put in 5, it's 5 square to dos on the search buffer. Right? It's 25 to dos for that one thing. So each individual one, it grows quadratically how important it is, so that a 5 stage to do, you just have to do it. You haven't left yourself any choice. Alright, so we want to be able to send a quit UI mode event. This is in exec system command. We're going to be really corny about this and just write it like that. Okay. Do step, file view, draw text field, int bar, draw string, draw file bar, do render file view, and then finally we will do view quit UI. Okay, so we have the thing that converges all those different events into one point. This is that one point. Now what needs to happen here is we need to look into this view's UI data and call the callback there. Okay, there we go. Now the only remaining problem is that that's chicken shit and doesn't get us anything that we actually need. So the next step is to come over here to types.h, UI control, Alright, so we've defined our function type. Now we need to have a way of setting it. Alright, Jim, thanks for hanging out. Have a good sleep. Alright, so now we have a way of setting the quit function on a UI. Now what we need to do is review each of our existing UIs and determine if they need a quit function. So what is this one doing? I'm pretty sure none of these needed a quit function. That was a part of the magic of how I set them up. Because I basically said I was putting them all in a special clearable blob. Which is kind of how I started thinking about all the scoping stuff. That's right, this does tie back into the scoping stuff pretty soon. Alright. Alright. This builds up all these things. We build the UI control and we set it. So what I want to see what happens when I have to cancel one of these? This doesn't have any handlers here for quitting. Okay, here's quit right here. Okay, so I think yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, they're super irregular, aren't they? Alright then. I see. Okay. Now I need to figure out how to actually call that. So let me take a look at what do I do when I want to call a callback. Let me just look for a hook somewhere. So I need the models. I just do models, application, wait, models, application links, app links, and then thanks for hanging out, Flying. We're moving along pretty well here. I'm quite happy with it. So thanks for hanging out. Later. Alright, now we want to see if this list all locations and UI mode actually works now. Still not really working. How did it not find what it was looking for there? That's actually kind of weird. It should have found it. Okay, I see. So we need to figure out why this is failing. I see. So I'm giving it a default target, which is not the one it started on. Yeah, so it's not actually... Okay, but that's fine. I have a different call that can do this correctly anyway. So we're going to do 195. Okay, but now this can get simplified quite a bit. It's just a matter of that is gone. This lives here, and this goes like this. So we set the target view, we try to get an alternate option. If we find an alternate option, we change our target view, and we do an end UI mode on it. Otherwise, we use the existing target view, and we set the buffer, and then we set that to the active view either way, send the exit signal, and zero out the buffer. Okay. Now it's not coming up at all. Oh, I know why. Okay. So what if I don't have that up and I have Scratch up instead, and then I do that. The buffer exists. I come in here. View quit UI. Okay, I see. So in addition to everything else, view quit UI needs to make sure okay, I've made a decision. Hmm. Yeah, I'm okay with that change. I'm sitting here thinking about how the UI stacks and stuff look, but I think it's good. So we clear the counter to 0 whenever we do a UI quit, no matter what, and then we call the UI quit function. Yeah. And the fact that we have to do that hard clear to 0 is what makes me think this shit belongs as a toggle for now. I mean, it would be a decrement in a loop, except that we don't have a UI stack. Like the UI data isn't in a stack anywhere. There's just no way to make that work given the architecture we have so far. So we're going to go with toggle for now, with the intention to make it a stack before too long, but only after we've answered some other questions. Load project 4. Okay, there we go. Boom. Alright. So I think that this is where I'd like to stop for today. I have things to do. I have things to do with the UI tomorrow still. Or, I mean, in the future. Plenty of new stuff, but that bug list, it looks like, is under control again, so I'm happy about that. Let me come over here to my original paper-based list, and boom, one of the 6 things I recommended I could work on today is done, with the exception of these follow-ups still need to happen. But yeah, that's pretty sweet. Thanks everyone who came out. See you guys around. Bye bye.